Hey guys, welcome back here to the Fishing Teacher, and really appreciate you guys joining me for today's episode. And guys, today I want to talk about what I call the braided line problem in terms of there are way too many anglers, guys, that use braided line way too much. And I want to get into this and sort of explain to you the problem or the mistake that maybe you're making it if you use braided line too much or in the wrong situations, why people do it, and some better options to that. So we're going to go over how it's not only costing you fish, but it's probably costing you bites as well. So we're going to get into that today's video. And out here in the basement trying to get caught up on paperwork, man, it's been so busy with Christmas. You guys know how it is. I'm so far behind. So I just got a little break here between sending emails out. I wanted to put a quick video out for you guys today. So getting into that here. Also, guys, before we get started, real quick, I want to remind you that, man, jerkbait fishing is really good here in the Ozarks right now. If you're interested in booking an on-the-water jerkbait lesson with me, just shoot me a private message on my Facebook page, Randy Blaukat Professional Angler, and I'll get you the details for that. And also, guys, there's still, at the time I film this video, there's still about 3 or 4 more days left on that big Tackle Warehouse end of the year sale. I'll have my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of this video if you guys would like to take advantage of some of those sales and help the channel out by using and bookmarking that link. Really appreciate that. Okay, I talk about line quite a bit in the channel here because line is one of those elements when you're talking about little things that can incrementally, allow you to catch more fish or fewer fish. Fishing line and the right selection of fishing line plays a big role in it. Whether it be the type of line like monofilament, braided line, or fluorocarbon, and also the appropriate use of the pound test line that you're using with different lure categories. So that's a whole nother topic, and we've done a lot of stuff on that. But today, what I want to talk about is how people use braided line way too often. Braided line is a very technique-specific piece of equipment that does not need to be used very often, because here's the thing about it. It's like, number one, when you're talking about getting bites, and I've always been the belief, and this is a big thing in my part, is you've got to get the bite before you can land the fish. So when I try to determine where I'm going to throw my lure at, or how heavy a line I'm using, or the type of line I'm using, or the lure that I'm using, I want to get that bite, whatever that takes. I'll worry about getting the fish in after I get the bite. But if I don't get the bite, I'll never get a chance to get the fish in. And the biggest reality about using braided line is, guys, it will never get you more bites, but it will quite often take away from the amount of bites that you get simply because of the visibility of the line. Now, if you're in any type of a decent water clarity situation, if you've ever seen braided line in the water, it literally looks like a piece of rope in the water. Even some of the more camouflage colors. I mean, Seagar has a gray line that's pretty, for a braided line, it's fairly invisible. But a lot of people use that yellow line, and some guys use white line. And then what happens is after you use braided line for a while, the color wears off of it, and every braided line eventually turns like a chalky white, which makes it even more visible. So the cleaner the water, the more visible this line is going to be. And guys, bass are extremely line sensitive in certain situations. Not all the situations. Some situations, not that big of a deal. But if you have a situation where you have water visibility of anything over about 1.5 or 2 foot clarity, and you've got a piece of braided line that is in the water for any distance at all, I don't care if it's 2 or 3 or 4 or 10 foot under the water, you're taking bites away from yourself. And don't think, if you're one of those guys that use braid to fluorocarbon, don't think that just because you've got a fluorocarbon leader that's 10 foot long that they're not seeing that braided line. Because if you're in a situation where you got 4 or 5 foot of water clarity and you've got a big yellow, braided line, main line coming down the water with a 10 foot, fluorocarbon leader on it, don't assume that they can't see that yellow line in the water. I mean, a bass can find a minnow at midnight in 30 foot of water, so they're very aware. They know that line's there. So it only makes sense that the more that you can camouflage your line and have more of an invisible line, the more bites you're going to get, for sure. So bass, it's definitely not helping you get any more bites. Now, another thing the braided line does is it's going to allow you to lose a lot of fish that you normally wouldn't have used because you do not have the line stretch. one of the biggest advantages about using braided line, or excuse me, fluorocarbon or monofilament line is the element of stretch that it has. Because when you're fighting a fish and the fish makes a run or a surge, the stretch within that fluorocarbon or that monofilament acts as a shock barrier, like a buffer, to not tear the hook out of a fish's mouth if they're not hooked very good. If you've got braided line, you don't have any give whatsoever. There's no give to that line, and you're a lot more able, or easily can tear a poorly hooked fish's mouth, as far as, if you got one barb in it or something. I've seen that happen a ton. So the fact that, it's not the best line to fight a fish with, it's not getting you any more bites, those are the two big factors that should keep you from using braided line most of the time. Okay, now here is the only time that you need to use braided line, in my opinion. Number one, if you're fishing like a frog or horny toad over thicker vegetation. Like if you're throwing a frog like in a big lily pad field or something like that, or you got matted hydrilla, yeah, braided line's the way to go, because you don't want any stretch in a situation like that, and they're not going to see the line in that matted vegetation. But even if I'm fishing a frog or horny toad or something like that and the water's more open, I will always use fluorocarbon line, but I only use it on a matted situation. The only other time that I use braided line is in a thick matted flipping cover situation, like thick matted hyacinths or thick matted hydrilla or milfoil, or sometimes extremely thick gnarly bushes in dirty water. Say if it's like mesquite trees and that's in 1.5 feet of water visibility, something like that. That's it. I mean, occasionally I'll use it like on a whopper plopper, but not very much anymore. Most of the time I'm fishing my whopper plopper on fluorocarbon with a flipping stick. So I've got two situations I throw braid in: heavy duty flipping situation, or any type of a frog deal. Other than that, guys, you really don't need to use braided line. One of the biggest pieces of advice I can give you guys, and I'll argue this with anybody, is on your spinning outfit, stop using braided line to fluorocarbon. Use straight fluorocarbon line. If you add up the advantages, if you take the advantages of using a braid to fluorocarbon setup and put it in one column, and then you take the advantages of using straight fluorocarbon line and put it in the other column, the straight fluorocarbon outweighs any advantage that you have over braid to fluorocarbon. A lot of people say, well, I use braid to fluorocarbon because, I don't get bird's nests or in the line and, that type of thing. The only reason you're getting bird's nests in your spinning reel because you're not spooling your line on correctly. And you're putting too much line on there, you're leaving loops, you're, not seeding it down right. There's a lot of different stuff to that. But I can tell you right now, guys, if you go to fluorocarbon line specifically more than braid, you're going to get a lot more bites. You're going to get more bites. You're going to land more fish. It's just a better all-around tool. And I think, like a lot of things in bass fishing, people get sucked into what they see and hear other people do a lot. And they do that without experimentation. Now, I'm coming at this from somebody that has experimented. Everything that I talk about, I used braid to fluorocarbon, guys, for a whole year experimenting with it. I wanted to see for myself if my theory was correct. And all the other braided line applications, I tried it fishing it, deeper, and, figured out how many strikes I was getting, and it hurt me. It hurt me when I used braid to fluorocarbon. It hurt me when I was using straight braid line, in terms of the amount of bites I got and the number of fish I lost. So my advice, guys, I'm not trying to make your life miserable if you do it, but I'm just trying to help you guys out, catch more fish and get more of them in the boat.